can probably make it full screen. So when everybody comes, I don't need to, oh, it's already started. So when everybody's on, or once, guys, Cooper, anyone shows up, I'll be right there. My computer cord, which is laying flat on the ground, by the way. Hey! Can you see me?
Hello.
Oh, there we go. Hello. Hi. How are you?
Good.
Good. Have you been doing any video conferencing?
I haven't personally.
What are you laughing about?
Eon's head was in the shot.
Oh, I saw him. Mihaela's right here. Hi. We're here for technical assistance. Hey. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so I got to figure out how to make this into squares, don't I? Because it didn't do it by itself.
You do,
Hang on. I'm experimenting here. Because I lost. Jane, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Gallery view.
Gallery view. Okay, hang on.
Tech support. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. We're doing better. We're doing better. Okay, Lexi, your picture isn't up. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Let me see if I can get my, start video. Oh, there we go.
Hello. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm all right. I'm hoping this will work because it'll be a lot easier than everything else. So, oh, here comes Cole. Jane, you disappeared.
I know. I'm just grabbing something.
Okay, take your time. I think 10 people said that they were going to be able to join, and then Jane and I would make 12. So we'll wait a few minutes and see. Hopefully we can get everybody up here, and then we will start when there are a bunch of us. Oh, it's already recording, right?
Yep. See, it's up in the corner. It says.
Okay, beautiful. All right. I am so not into looking at myself in a mirror ever, so let alone in a video. But I am coming to you from my living room. All right, Cole, just so you know, I can't see. Oh, you're moving around. I can't see your picture or hear you. Hey, Kat. Oh, yes, we're getting there. There was Rex. Hey, Rex. All right, we got lots of people coming up. Do you see their names when I do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, beautiful. We're doing great. Just waiting. See, I'm gonna try the earbud microphone thing next week, if this works. Okay, what is?
Sarah, come here. That means you can open chat. Oh, Cole says that he's here, but he has his camera turned off.
So can you hear me, Cole? Hello? Huh. So I can't leave that open.
He says yes.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, good to know. Just no picture. I'd love to see your picture if you want.
Sometimes like computer cameras don't always work.
Okay.
Oh, dog, guest dog.
Hi.
Oh, guest kitty.
Is that your rescue?
Yeah.
What's its name?
Her name was Sarah, but I'm trying to like change it to Goose.
Goose.
That's
cute.
cute.
That's very cute. Just keep calling her Goose and she'll learn it.
That's what I've been doing. She already kind of responds to it, but she responds to like anything that I call her.
Right. It's like, I always say it's kind of like nicknames, because when you start calling your dog a nickname, they just learn to come to that name too. So, can you hear us?
Yeah, but his microphone is turned off. Oh, look in the chat again. Do you see how it's orange? It means like there's a new thing.
That's cool.
Oh, okay, yep.
Am I muted?
No, well, you can. think he'll selectively do. Yeah.
Alon, can you hear us? Okay, so you're just gonna have your picture off, but you're gonna have video on? Okay, yes. All right, just so you guys, Cole and Alon, that you know, do the rest of you see the chat when the non-picture people are chatting? Okay, beautiful. I've never done this before, you can tell, right? All right, I'm straightening out, and I needed a haircut about 6 months ago, and you've never seen me in my glasses, and is the reflection terrible?
No.
Okay, so there are a couple other people in the house, and we're not sure how sound-wise this is gonna work. And I'm just crossing my fingers, but I think we should get started. Sound good? Yes, beautiful, just like class. Just nod your heads, give me a thumbs up. All right, so first I just wanna know, like, Jane, where are you living right now?
I'm living at my boyfriend's house. He's in the corner right there because I'm in his room.
Hi, Keon.
Hi, nice to meet you.
We shaved his head the other day. 'Cause His hair was
Nice,
getting too long.
that's what
It was
I
fun.
wanna do.
Yeah,
What
but-
city? What city and
Bethesda,
state?
Maryland. Bethesda,
Maryland.
Maryland.
How about you, Colleen? Up, can't hear you. Still can't hear you. You did something that made it sound like you might. Can anyone else hear her? Okay,
How about now?
definitely now.
Okay. I'm still in Vermont. I'm in Georgia, Vermont.
Georgia, not very far from here.
Yeah.
And Paige, where are you?
I'm home in New Jersey.
Lexi, where are you living?
I'm home in Mass.
Kat?
I'm at my cousin's house in New York City. Hi.
Got it. Cousins, New York City, that's an intense place to be.
Yeah, it's pretty bad here
Are the streets empty?
for the most part, and the subways too. Everyone's
Bizarre.
got a mask on and gloves.
Yeah, I was thinking about the other day, there's 8.6 something million people in New York City, and there's less than 900,000 people in Vermont, the whole state.
Wow.
Yeah. Rex, where are you living at?
I'm in Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
Got it. How about you? Alon? Oh, I can see your lips moving, but I cannot hear you. Nope, still nothing.
I want to
you hear-
unplug your headphones. It might be your headphone mic isn't working.
Yeah, that's what Colleen did, right? It's weird. This is very interesting to me. I've
about now?
zoomed. No, much better.
Works?
Yeah, awesome.
Okay.
So
I'm
where are
still
you
in-
living?
I'm in Washington Township, New Jersey, living at my dad's house.
Got it. And Cole, where are you living? Got it. Back home in Mass. All right. Well, given that it's a few minutes after 7, I'm just going to go ahead with us. And if other people join, that'll be awesome. I really appreciate that you guys are trying this out and willing to do it. I think it will be, I know it'll be far more educational than having you read stuff and write questions. So what I wanted to start with was just going over a couple things that I want to cover, kind of fill in some spots that you just couldn't read. It's very minimal. And then we'll jump into you guys asking questions, and I'll answer them as we go. And if you have more than one question or someone has a follow-up question, that's perfectly fine. All right? All right. So this first thing I know is very repetitive with what you read, but since I have you in person, I just want to again state that you've got to remember when we talk about pharmacology, I'm not a veterinarian. And sorry, I thought a dog was peeing on something. And everything we're talking about, I know the facts and it's all factual, but this does not relate to human beings, even though these are all medications that human beings take. So just know that this is only to be applied towards dogs. So a couple things I would normally start the class with is, first of all, when it comes to using medication, your client is clearly involved, and that can bring up several different issues. One, is the client going to be receptive to that? How do you know if the client's going to be receptive to that? So a lot of that is feeling out the person and trying to get a sense of things. And if you feel like it's something you can mention, you can go ahead and do it. And if you're not sure, two things. One, if you want to know who the veterinarian is. And for me, I know all the vets around here. And so I know automatically what vets would say, oh, Jamie's not a vet. I don't care what she told you, you might help your dog. But a lot of the vets I know will work with me. And so then that will make it easier for me to potentially mention it to a client if I think their dog needs it. If I think that it's too risky vet-wise, or I think that the client would be very adverse to the idea of medication, I'll mention at the end of a consult, and I'll usually just say, this may not be necessary for your dog, but I just want to put on the back burner the idea that medication ultimately may be something we want to try. And I'll do it like at the end of the first consult. And then they have time to think about it between the first and the second consult. And in terms of like, how do you know if that client even needs medication? As you read, it's very hard to fix almost any anxiety disorder without, hey, Ketty, nice to have you join us. Can you say something? I want to know if I can hear you.
What was that? Can you hear?
Yes, now I can hear you. Got it. Your lips weren't moving, but that's probably just the video conferencing.
Yeah, it took a minute, but I can hear you too now. I couldn't.
Awesome. And I can't believe how nobody's blurry. I tried out Zoom with like some friends and it was much blurrier, but I'm also much closer to the modem than I normally would be, depending on where I sit. So in terms of anxiety disorders, if you're catching, for example, an OCD behavior right away, which is rare, you might be able to get away with not trying medication. But at this point, by the time most people call us, their dog is at an extremely severe level of whatever behavior it's displaying. And with anxiety disorders, that almost always means medication is going to be necessary. If it's a mild case of any anxiety disorder, again, I might not recommend it, or I might just do the put it on the back burner. We can talk about it if you're not making enough progress. Oftentimes we really need medication to help the dog, get over and recover and manage its stress, etc. With aggression, it's often extremely helpful, but you can fix almost all or treat and manage almost all aggression issues without medication. When I really feel it's necessary is a dog that wants to take my face off when I walk in the door, or a dog that has bitten several people already, or bitten several dogs. When it's that extreme of an aggression, I will usually try to get medication in there. It's also easier to say and truthful that as the training goes on, it's much easier to wean an aggressive dog off a medication than it is to wean an anxiety issue dog off a medication. Hi, Ren. The table's too high. I'm going to try and get Falcon to come to the table because he'll put his head right here and you'll be able to see him. Here, hang on, here's Ren. Where's Ron? So much more fun to see dogs.
Go say hi.
Look at the camera.
Go say
So that's kind of the split between aggression and anxiety. I'm just checking my notes. Another thing is that I have here is Falcon. Falcon rarely comes when called. Caper, come up here. Come on, come up, come on. No, he's next to me, but he won't put his feet up. We'll just get Falcon here if we can. Tell me where I was. Anybody? Okay, a little louder. Dane?
Yeah, it was about. Ooh, I got distracted by Ren.
I did too.
It's that it's easier to wean
Oh,
off.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, Alon just said aggression versus anxiety. So yeah, I think I was just kind of finishing up about aggression, which is you have a better chance of weaning off the dog from the medication if it's an aggression issue than you might if you were trying to wean the dog off of a medication in terms of anxiety. Because usually, here's Falcon. Come on, put your nose down. There's Falcon.
Oh, he's such a good boy.
He's a very good boy. Very big. Okay, so like that last part, usually an anxiety disorder, the dog stays on the medication for life. And that is because it becomes so intense and the chemical shifts in the body are so strong, so fast that you cannot change that chemical balance without the medication. And that's one of the main reasons it's so important with anxiety issues. I think where I was going next was, how do you know what medication to try first? So you've got your behaviorist viewpoint, and then you've got whatever the veterinarian's going to say. So trazodone has become so popular that at this point, I'm seeing that almost always first, unless it's with my clients, a lot of them I'll say, see if you can get fluoxetine, because I think that's going to be the best drug. And a lot of some vets will do it. Again, if the vet knows me well, we've worked together, they're usually going to take my recommendation. Most vets are going to say, let's try trazodone first. And that's been really in the last year, a massive switch, that trazodone has become probably the #1 drug prescribed for behavioral issues. And it's due to, as you read, the fact that it provides anti-anxiety components, which can also be anti-aggression components, and it has a sedating effect. My experience is it sometimes works well in the beginning when you have the sedating effect, but that after several weeks, it's not very helpful. It's just, you may as well, it's just not working. And then you get to go back to the vet and say, now can we try fluoxetine? Tricyclic antidepressants, amitriptyline, which is what I kind of focused on after the clomipramine, with those, with the rise in the trazodone, I'm seeing a direct correlation with the decrease in tricyclics, the TCAs. And that's just, I think, the switch that people are making. That still realize that fluoxetine has its place, but tricyclics can provide some mild sedation in the beginning, but very little. And in my experience over many years, I would now come to the conclusion that fluoxetine, and I say fluoxetine because it's the only SSRI that's used in dogs at this point, that is almost always more effective for almost any behavioral issue than amitriptyline is. But if a dog, in certain cases, in aggression, I'm almost always going to go fluoxetine. In anxiety, I might, if the dog is really anxious, I might go with, you know, try the clomipramine or the amitriptyline first. It's pretty much more about getting the person and the vet on board with the idea of medication, and then switching the medication if one isn't working, kind of just like a human doctor would do. You know, they give you something and it's not helping. Ideally, they're going to give you something else. Okay, I know you have questions ready, but any questions on what I've said so far? Oh, Candy, M&M, Alon, for shaking your head. Great job. Good smiles. I love it. Yes, thank you. It makes me feel so much better. I can tell you that I have despised online teaching. It takes hours and hours and hours, and it sucks not to be in the room with you guys. So this is much better for me. Okay, so I'm going to briefly explain a few things about each of the 4 classifications of drugs. Again, just highlighting some of the areas that may have been confusing. With the benzodiazepines, excluding trazodone, you always, if you're going to go the medication route with fluoxetine or a tricyclic, you're always going to want to try to get the dog on a benzo like alprazolam or diazepam at the same time. And that's because fluoxetine doesn't start working for at least 6 weeks. And amitriptyline or clomipramine does not start working until at least 3 weeks. And it's really, fluoxetine is 6 to 8 weeks, and the tricyclics are 3 to 6 weeks. So in order to provide some relief to that dog as soon as possible, you combine the 2 drugs, because the benzos will provide immediate help, like within 20 minutes. A lot of people are prescribed it for, like, if you don't have constant sleeping issues, but you periodically have difficulty sleeping, a lot of doctors will prescribe diazepam, which is Valium, and then you take it as needed. And usually if you take it, most people can fall asleep within about half an hour of taking the medication. And so it's the same thing in a dog. If you're putting them on fluoxetine and you know it's going to be a month and a half till they're going to feel better, you put them on the benzo at the same time, and it maintains its efficacy. It takes a long time for the dog to become acclimated to a benzo to the point where it's no longer effective. Does that make sense? Just one nod. Okay, excellent. And so then when you would take the dog off the benzo is if once the other drug is kicked in and you believe it's working, you would slowly wean the dog off the benzodiazepine. So if, say, the dog were on Valium and it was on fluoxetine, at about 6 or 7 weeks, ideally you'd be seeing even more beneficial effects, because mostly what the benzo is going to do is just calm the dog. It's going to sedate it mildly, which reduces anxiety. But the other drugs are better for long-term use. And the only reason you're using the benzo is to bide your time until the other drug works. Good? All right, thank you. M&M's, candy to everybody. With the tricyclic antidepressants, as I said already, it's being used less and less because of trazodone. And I actually, when I was thinking about it today, I'm thinking about, like, I can't really remember the last time I had a dog that was on a tricyclic antidepressant. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say for now. With the SSRIs, again, fluoxetine is the one that's used the most, even though there are several other SSRIs on the market that people use. There's generations and generations of new ones now. In dogs, it's still normally fluoxetine. Trazodone, I almost never refer to it as an SARI because trazodone's the only drug within the class that's ever used, and that's all you hear people talk about. You might hear a person, because human society is often familiar with what benzodiazepines are, or Valium. Same thing with the tricyclic antidepressants and the SSRIs, but trazodone, a lot of people haven't heard of it until their vet, or in a human case, their doctor prescribes it. In dogs, it's also used a lot now post-surgery because of the sedation effect. It doesn't reduce pain, but it's found to be very effective at sedating the dog to, not to the point where they can't move, but it can be used for, a 6-week recovery from, say, an ACL surgery. So you'll see it used for that. Most dogs are sent home now after surgery with like a pain medication and trazodone to keep the dog quiet while it's recovering. Okay, so that's pretty much the stuff that I wanted to add to what you read. And since I felt like it would be faster to go with you guys reading it and then asking me questions, and I will fill in those blanks. So Jane, you're not asking questions, are you? No. Okay. Paige, do you want to go next? Because you're next on my screen.
Yeah. I was gonna say, hold on. Oh, why do you think that no companies have tested the amitriptyline to sell under a brand name?
It's a great question. I think, again, that would go into the human world, but I think it's because my guess would be that other companies have looked at the profits from amitriptyline and seen that it's not that high, and therefore they're not investing their money in a drug where they're not going to make enough money off their own brand name or a generic. That'd be my best guess. Is, think big pharma. They're gonna want to promote drugs that are going to gain them a lot of money, and I don't think they would see that profit in that area.
Okay.
Any follow-up questions to that? All right, Lexi?
Yeah. So I was wondering why fluoxetine.
You
How do
can
you
call
say that?
Prozac if it's easier.
Yeah. One of the things you wrote is that it particularly treats the lick granulomas, but like, why does it target that one thing and not, like, why doesn't it hit the rest of the OCD behaviors? Like, is there something in the drug?
It's a great question, and the answer is we only know because of experience.
Okay.
And just because one of the things about lick granulomas is when I was growing up, we considered lick granulomas as a skin problem. So it was treated as a dermatitis issue. And so you'd be given antihistamines and those types of drugs to try to get the dog to stop licking, and it never worked. And fluoxetine, it's possible that people tried tricyclics like amitriptyline in the beginning, but they wouldn't have worked. And it was before I don't know if that even happened. I just know that when Prozac began being prescribed for lick granulomas, it worked. And the other ones don't seem to. And I'm guessing you're right. It has something to do with the chemical structure, but I don't know enough about it to be able to give you a direct answer. Sorry.
Okay. No, thank you. That was good.
Okay, follow-up question? All right, Kat, you're up. I'm so glad you could make it.
So if you're giving a dog a benzodiazepine and you're adding a secondary medication on top of that, and the secondary medication isn't working or as effective, is the dog gonna be on the benzodiazepine the whole time until that secondary drug gets replaced or changed with a different one?
If it's clear to you that the drug is not working because you know, you're not, because the benzo is mostly just going to quiet the dog. It may not, like the aggression isn't going to necessarily start to slow down, or the circling or whatever it is, until the fluoxetine kicks in. It's more there to help just make the dog feel better, calm down, kind of like having a couple beers.
Okay.
So the most of the time, a vet would want to wean off the benzodiazepine to see if the drug really is working or not on its own.
Okay.
And then if it's not, my recommendation is always put the dog right back on the benzo, wean off the fluoxetine, add in the amitriptyline, and yes, keep the dog on the benzo as soon as you know you're going to switch drugs. Because if the fluoxetine's not working and you want to try amitriptyline, you want to get that back in the dog, the benzo back in the dog system as soon as possible. That makes sense?
Yep.
Follow up? All right, thank you. Good, this is good. All right, Rex, you're up.
All right. So I have a question about, are animal behaviorists able to get the credibility to be able to write prescriptions, or is this something that only vets can do?
You can now become a veterinary behaviorist, but you have to be a veterinarian in order to prescribe the drugs, which is why I can't prescribe to my clients. I can only work with their vets. And early on when I worked, first when I was working at the Pound, and was actually when I was the animal control officer and I was starting to build my business. I'd go around to all the vet's office with business cards, but I talked to the people behind the front desk, because that's who everybody talks to when they call. And so via the people behind the desk and the techs, and eventually I'd often meet the vet, I was able to build all these relationships with vets in the area. And then on top of that, because obviously vets change and people move and practices open and close, my name was well known enough that, like, I had to take a dog to Bev's a couple weeks ago. It was a boarder. I'm trying to remember who. But anyway, it was Katie. And I walked in and a tech came into the waiting room to talk to me, and I just introduced, and I was like, this isn't my dog, I'm Jamie Shaw, she's staying with, oh, Jamie Shaw, it's so nice to meet you. So after years, if you do that job, you'll build up that reputation and vets will work with you. But as a behaviorist, you absolutely, regardless of the certification, you have to become a veterinarian or an MD or a PhD in some field that allows you to write scripts. And it is an impediment for me, but back when I first started, there was no veterinary behavior program. So by the time a veterinary behavior program came out, I was like well into easily my 30s and not wanting to go back to school at that point. Good, everybody?
My
All
question
right.
is actually related to that.
Go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So in the notes of the like lecture, I guess, you wrote in one section in the beginning about how if a veterinarian makes a prescription without a treatment management plan or doesn't recommend a behaviorist, then it's like useless. So I was wondering if it's common for behaviorists in veterinary centers to have like partnerships where like the vet would always recommend this one behaviorist, or the behaviorist would always recommend this one vet clinic or something like that.
Well, there's a couple answers. One is so I don't know any veterinary clinic in our area that has a behaviorist on staff, but almost all vets have a list of behaviorists and trainers that they send people to. There, the problem exists that most vets don't know the difference between a dog trainer and a dog behaviorist. So, but if the dog's on medication, at least hopefully the dog's feeling better. And then what a dog trainer will do is provide obedience training to the owner, which will control the behavior. So that's sort of, the trainer becomes the management and the veterinarian with the prescription becomes the treatment. But a lot of times what'll happen is, like, I'll have clients come to me now where their dogs are already on medication. And they're like, I called you because my vet said this would work and it's not working. You know, I need more help. And in general, if the vet doesn't recommend a behaviorist, then the client, if they're not getting enough success, will call the vet back, or just on their own look up, I need more help, look for a behaviorist. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Really
Okay.
quick, I wanted to see if you guys could see this, but Percy, this dog, he has lick granulomas on his thing. I just wanted to give an example. You can't really see him right now. I don't think they're super bad right now. Like on his back right there, you can see that he's missing a bunch of fur.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't want me holding him any longer. But he, like, if you, like, just let him sit for a while, like, he's just started doing it. He'll, like, the back of his leg and stuff like that, he'll lick that. And Keon was asking me the other day, like, why he does that and how to make him stop. And so
go ahead.
And I was like, I think it's an anxiety thing, because his mom always says that it's like allergies and that they should get Benadryl for it. But it just related to the fluoxetine targets lick granulomas, and how people back in like older times, not older times, but they said that, like,
When in older time, you know, I'm old, so I get it.
but like they said that it was like allergies, but now you kind of know that it's like an anxiety thing, because you can definitely see like the context of, like, I was holding him and he didn't like it, and then the second that I put him down, he went to go lick the back of his leg.
Yep. So
I called him in here. So.
No, that's perfect. You know how we talked about displacement behaviors in USD?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a classic example. You pick up the dog, you put the dog down. It's not a regular displacement behavior.
Yeah.
It's an advancement of that. The dog no longer does a displacement behavior because, for whatever reason, it never worked.
Yeah.
So now it's advanced. Sorry if Keon's hearing this and he doesn't like what I'm saying,
No,
but
okay.
so what's happened is now it's advanced to, I'm skipping displacement behaviors because they haven't gotten me any help, and now I have lick granulomas. And also, if he hadn't had them before, then I would say it's because of the massive change in all of our lives in the last few weeks.
He's had them since I've been around here. I think it's because there was, like, big changes in the household and stuff. And he does it, like, when the person that Keon's mom, who he's, like, bonded to the most, when she, like, leaves the house or when she leaves the room, like, it's like incessant licking on his chest and on his stomach area.
Yeah, one of the things that, so I have no dogs boarding right now. Obviously, everybody canceled, nobody's going anywhere, so I'm making basically no money. So we're trying to add in new services that we can offer people. And one of the things that I realized a couple days ago is that anybody that owns a dog and has a shelter-in-place order is going to have a dog that ends up with separation anxiety if life goes back to normal, or when life goes back to normal. And it's going to be a major issue. And so I'm trying to figure out a way to make contact with people so that I can tell them, do these things now so your dog doesn't have separation anxiety in 2 months when you can go wherever you want again. And that's, again, households changing is the initial stress. Even if it's now you're home all the time and the dog loves it, it's still, change is always stressful. And then the second thing is that we're home all the time. And so our dogs are never being left alone. And therefore, suddenly, you know, you go back to work or you go back to school, your parents go back to work, whatever. Suddenly the dog's alone all day and it's going to flip out, unfortunately. So that's something you guys can all think about for yourselves. The best way you can counteract or prevent it is, if you're going to get groceries, don't take the dog in the car. If you're going for a walk, then occasionally leave the dog home. Even though you might have to go for another walk with the dog, or you go for a walk with the dog first, then go for a walk without the dog. And it's hard because you're like, why wouldn't I take the dog with me? It's the best thing in my life right now. But it's for the dog's sake not to develop separation anxiety. Does that make sense? So you can now all be professionals and pass that on to your friends and family. Okay, so we were back to you, Alon, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
You
go
guys hear
for
me?
it.
Okay. So my question was just about titrating down, and is it like titrating down? Is that like each day you would titrate down, or is it bi-weekly? And then how much of the dose would you go? Like a quarter down, or just like 10 milligrams?
It depends on the drug and the dosage. So let's say, for example, you have a dog on 20 milligrams of Valium, the benzo. You have company in the background. The company can stay.
I'm Dad.
Hey, Dad, I love your son. He's a great student.
I'm glad he's here with me. He's keeping me alive.
Aw, what a good kid.
You're saying
Oh.
it depends on the type of drug, and then
So
would it
first of
depend
all-
on the dog as well, like the size of the dog?
Well, so drugs in dogs are prescribed based on milligrams of drug per pound of body weight in the dog.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had Falcon, or if I even it could even be like a 50-pound dog, like a golden. If you had a golden on a benzo, it might be at, say, 20 milligrams. And so probably you would wean it down 5 milligrams at a time every roughly 3 to 5 days. The vet would tell you the program. Some vets are going to do 3 days, some vets may do 7 days, but on average it's about 4 days, every 4 days you can usually decrease the dose. And if you're on, and sometimes it's based on the medication. So like fluoxetine comes in capsules, which you can't break up. And it comes in 10 milligram, 20 milligram, and 40 milligram. So if you want to give 30 milligrams, you give a 10 and a 20. But if the dog were on 40, you'd probably cut down by 10 milligrams at a time. And if it was on 60, you would do the same thing, because the lowest, the smallest amount of milligrams you can get in fluoxetine is 10 milligrams. So it really depends on the drug. Did that answer everything? Beautiful.
Yeah, totally.
Excellent. Thank you. Ketty, did you have more? Was that your question?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Colleen, I love the dog poster in the background.
Thanks. My walls are covered with posters. So you said in the notes that fluoxetine is basically the only medication to date to kind of treat certain OCD behaviors.
Yep.
Do you know if there's any current research going on, like about different medications that could potentially help with that too? Or
with what was the last thing you said?
If there's any research going on currently on different medications that could help with OCD behaviors.
That I know of, no. But again, similar to what I said before, it's not identical, but pharmaceutical companies in general don't have any investment in producing drugs for dogs. Even though they use dogs to test the drugs before they're tested on humans, which is how we know they're safe to use in dogs, because if they get passed by the FDA, they've already been tested on dogs and it's been safe, or the testing wouldn't have continued. So it's, if you look at what happened with fluoxetine being sold as Reconcile, if you remember reading about that, I think I have them straight. Fluoxetine is Reconcile and the other one is Clonicalm. Okay, so after pharmaceuticals saw like all these dogs are being prescribed fluoxetine and it's working, let's research it on 7 dogs and now we can market it as Reconcile. That's where their money lies. Money in developing new dog. I've never heard of any company develop a new drug directly for dogs.
Okay.
And when it comes to behavioral issues, as we've talked about, all the medications that are used are ones that have worked on humans, and like I said, already been tested on dogs. Eventually we started trying it in dogs, we see success, and therefore it's used on dogs. And I think the only thing a pharmaceutical company might do is say, now that trazodone's working really well and it's becoming really popular, not just for behavioral issues, but for post-surgical recovery and those types of things, I could easily see a pharmaceutical company going, ooh, let's test trazodone on 100 dogs and we can market it as whatever and make a ton of money. And that's, again, that's just because of the way that industry works.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Cole, you're up. Cole, how closely must the owners follow the dosing? Does the pill need to be given? Can you guys also read it or no? Okay, all right, I'm gonna read it to myself then. Okay, can you guys all hear me? All right, because there's a bunch of questions. So I'm gonna just go one at a time. In terms of how closely must the owner follow the dosing, absolutely you would follow it, particularly because you can't follow the progress of the dog if you're switching up the dosing from day to day. I'm not sure if that's quite exactly how you're asking it, but that would be that in that respect, you would want to stick with proper dosing. In my case, as a behaviorist and with my own dogs, if I don't think it's enough, I call my vet and I'm like, okay, 20 milligrams of fluoxetine is not working for Falcon. I need 40. And after about 6 or 8 months, my vet wanted it to go back down to 20, and I tried it, and I saw a unwelcome change within less than a week, and I called him and I said, I need 40. And at this point, his certain behaviors are getting bad enough that I might want to up him to 60, and I know I will have to go to a different veterinarian because I know my current veterinarian would never prescribe that level of fluoxetine for him. But my attitude is, if you still have this anxiety behavior, which is combined with an aggressive behavior, not guarding, I think I've talked about it, he's a bully with other dogs. He doesn't hurt them, but he bullies them, and it makes life miserable when we go out on hikes. So definitely follow the dosing that's prescribed and work with your veterinarian if you don't think that's the correct dosing. Does the pill need to be given at X time every day for the rest of its life? What we usually do, most people do, is give pills in the morning when they feed their dog in the morning and pills at night when they feed their dog at night. And most drugs are given twice a day. There are some drugs that are given 3 times a day, but those are for medical issues. And so you would just usually, but in my experience, I don't feed my dogs at the same time every day. I always say no dog was born needing to be fed at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. out of a bowl. So my dogs could eat breakfast anywhere between 6 and 9 a.m. and they could eat dinner anywhere between 6 and 8 p.m. and they get their medications in their dinners and breakfast. And I've never seen a problem with that. And I think the same pretty much is true for humans. The only exception that I know of in humans is birth control pills, that you're supposed to take them exactly at the same time every single day. But we don't give those to dogs. In terms of does a dog, let me do the, okay, once a day at any time work, I would that's usually not how it's prescribed. You usually want to, I don't care so much about it being 12 hours apart, but like I said, you do want to stick with roughly the same time twice a day or the same time once a day. So at my house, if dogs get medication once a day, we always give it at breakfast. And that's just a routine that works well for us. If does every time for the rest of life. In terms of does the dog need the drug for the rest of its life, is that part of what you're asking, Cole? I'll wait till you type your reply to my question. Not getting a reply. Okay, I'll continue. If you miss a dose, occasionally, it's not going to matter. If you miss several doses, or like you miss 2 or 3 doses every week, that's going to be a problem. You do want to try to give it. Oh, got it. No, it was in regard to timing. Thank you. So I was looking in the wrong place. Technology impaired. So in terms of what time, it's usually recommended that you do give the drugs at relatively the same time every day, but off by a couple hours one way, or an hour one way or another, I don't think it matters. And I would always recommend to a client, pick a time of day that's convenient. So if you come home from work at lunch and that's when you want to give the AM dose, and then you give the PM dose right before bed, that works fine. It's whatever works for that person's life. Does that answer everything? Beautiful. I'm glad to hear it. I'm missing your face. Okay. Any other questions that you have about this stuff? Okay. Beautiful. I want to tell. Oh, Alon, did you have a question?
Nope.
Okay. I want to tell you a couple things. One, well, first of all, if you're comfortable saying in front of everybody, what do you think of this form versus what you did with the anxiety stuff?
I like this.
I like this too.
Yeah, it's nice. I like
It's
it.
nice to actually be able to hear from you to answer the questions.
Yeah, I
Good.
agree.
Totally.
Yeah, agreed.
Nice to be in front of you.
Yeah, I agree too.
Thank you. I like it a lot better. It's also one of the things I did with your anxiety questions, just so you know this, is I got it, Cole. Thanks. One of the things is that at Mahala's suggestion, typing answers the first time for the first half of the anxiety took me 9 hours. And that's because I have a lot, as you know, I have a lot of problems with sentence structure and things like that, spelling, which isn't a problem when I'm talking nearly as much as when I'm typing or writing by hand. So Mahala suggested I record the answers to the second round of questions, which I did. And for me, I can say it worked way better because I was able to give case studies and examples and things that I would have said in class that would never have come across in just typing back and forth. So we are in the process of trying to get that uploaded because it was like 14 separate short videos. So we're trying to link them together in one form or another. They'll be posted later this week. And obviously you're not required to listen to the answers. I would recommend it because it will help you out on your final. So, and again, recording the answers was a zillion times easier for me. And I tell some funny stories about psychotic dogs in the videos. So this has been great. Anybody have anything else? All right, it's wonderful to see your faces, and I really hope you can all stay safe, and hopefully we'll have class like this next week. All right?
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. You guys take,
Thank you.
See you guys.
all right. Bye-bye.
Bye.